Welcome to the Inspiring Victory Show, where we help you double your business, double your impact, and change the world. I am Sarah Victory, and I am very lucky to be here with Sheybani, who's one of my favorite people on earth. So smart, Harvard trained, has worked on so many incredible projects, and really is the brains behind how you can have a business growth engine that gets you a never-ending stream of new business in some very counterintuitive and exciting ways. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different tactics and tools that she uses to get you a business growth engine that you can do yourself. And you can always talk to her some more if you want to find out more about how she does it with her clients. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, Anne.
I love being here, and thank you for sharing your platform because, your audience are like my kind of people. So thank you for having me.
Best tribe in the world, and we're honored to have you. You're already a member. Welcome, welcome. So tell me, I know there's a lot of different things you do in order to help people create that business growth engine. And I know a big part of it has to do with finding a book as a business owner or as a luminary or someone that wants to be seen more and more in the public eye. How should somebody go about figuring out if that is a good tool for them? And how do you make that into a business growth engine and not a doorstop?
Right. I love that question. So everybody's heard that story that we all have a book inside of us, right? Like everyone talks about, I've always wanted to write a book, and I know I've got a book inside of me. And people will ask me all the time, like, should I be writing a book? And there's a bunch of questions that I ask because timing is everything. And the outcome that you are after is probably a better determinant than if you should write a book. So when I talk to people, my natural assumption is that somebody wants to write a book to build their business or to become known as a credible authority in their field. And that's generally how I approach the conversation. But even if I'm talking to somebody who's running, a $30 million business, that's not always the right assumption to be making because sometimes people want to put their thoughts down or they have this memoir idea or they're looking to write a book that's not necessarily geared towards their business. It's not going to drive the engine towards building that particular career out or getting onto stages or getting any of the things that typically experts want to be getting with their book. And so finding out, well, what's the real motivation is key. So if somebody wants to express themselves, they've lost their mother and they suddenly want to write a book about their mother, then it's, maybe writing a book is the right thing, but just know that the outcome that you're after is very different than the outcome of the typical business owner. This is self-expression. This is sharing memories. This is a healing process that we could turn into something more relevant to a general audience with some effort. But that's a different kind of book. That's memoir or that's personal essay. So as long as you're separating the business growth outcome from that, you're fine. And other people will come to me and they're business owners and they're envisioning that this book is going to build their business. And when we start talking, they are very unclear on what this book serves as a gateway to. Like they don't know where the reader can go after it. They don't know what they want the reader to do. They don't know that they want this book to be for their speaking engagements, because until they know where they're taking people, sitting down to write a book it requires way too much effort. It requires like, what's your business model now? Okay, we got to talk about your business model and we got to stitch that into a book. So we almost have to slam the paw brakes on and figure out the business model, not unlike what you do, Sarah. Figure out what that business model is, what the outcome is that they're after. And sometimes timing is just not right. They've got way too many things to build and they've got way too many decisions that they have to make as to how they help people, that I usually send them packing in that, like, figure this stuff out first, build a few things first, then come back to me and we'll build the book. And, if they need help with, I want a speaking career, well, What do we need to put in place for that before we sit down and write a book that's actually going to drive to that outcome? So too early in your business?
There's a timing factor with it. Yeah. I always ask people one thing, what do you want? Anything that is a marketing campaign, and a book is also a marketing campaign. Most of the time, people are content creators and business owners that want to be super visible in their market so they can dominate that market. But you always have to say, it doesn't matter whether it's a new website or it's having a podcast or it's any marketing or it's having a book. You have to ask yourself two questions in my mind. Before I even send them to you, I always make sure I've at least asked them this so you don't get them cold, which is, what is the noble goal for the book? Like, what is the best thing that could happen when somebody's finished reading the book? And then what are your business goals for the book? And that's sort of the most important, because if you don't know what you want it to do for you, if you don't know what you want any marketing thing to do for you, it's not going to happen. And you can structure a book in such a way that even the scan readers will want whatever that outcome is. If you want more, we have a consulting firm, you want more consulting, you structure a book so that people keep seeing stories of how you have helped amazing businesses get way more amazing. If you want to do more speaking, have some speaking stories, especially in the beginning. If you want to have it be something where you can show all the different systems and structures and ways you can come in and increase business, have a shocking profit like Tim Van Meegum has, where it's everything you ever wanted to know about the money you're leaving on the table and how to pick it back up. So it always comes down to, it is a big investment of time, as you said. And I also look for personal things. If I get a CEO who comes to me and they're already running a $50-60 million business and having a baby and moving house, you have to be ready for not necessarily the time it takes. It's not hugely time intensive if you've got a great ghostwriter, and you guys have the best team possible, of course. Even with that, there's a certain amount of brain space that goes into it. Speaking of Tim Van Meegum, he said something interesting about writing a book, which was writing Shocking Profit allowed him to really figure out what his company sells, clarify it to a point where he can say it so succinctly, because every single chapter was a piece of what they do. And the title, the subtitle, all those chapters, he said, even if he hadn't written the book, the fact that he had those enabled him to clarify. And he has a staff of a bunch of salespeople. So then they could clarify, this is what we do here. We're literally writing the book on it, or our boss is, and that kind of thing. So I think people forget that you writing a book, you can get business while you're writing it because you have an amazing title, subtitle, and chapter titles that you can use as speaking segments and speaking topics. So while you're writing it, you can be quoting people, you can be interviewing people, you can be talking to people in the industry and comparing notes. Once it's written, you can turn it into a podcast. You can chunk it into different pieces, as you do all of the time. Let's switch to the business part, because that's, I think, really where you're most well known, and certainly what we think of you for. Tell me more about the business growth engine that can come from writing a book.
So I want to kind of leap backwards for a minute and touch on something that you had said, and that is creating the content while you're writing a book. And I think that's really key. When I was in grad school, the idea was that you're going to fully focus and complete your manuscript, that the whole goal was to build that book out. And after you were done, then you were going to pitch an agent, and then you were going to, get the big book deal. And there was zero talk about, at the time, social media wasn't out there, but at the time, the version of social media would be submitting standalone pieces to publications, literary magazines, or, Vogue. How much platform do you have? And the first time I was pitching to an agent, the agent had asked me, how big is your platform? And I had never even heard of the word platform. And she's like, it's a following, it's a ready-made audience of people who know you and would immediately want to buy a book, because traditional publishing is not going to engage with a new author in particular unless they have a following, because it's a business decision. It's a high risk to go with some unknown who has no people. Like, they are looking for authors who have a great idea, who can write well, and who have a platform, so they don't have a lot of work to do, right? They're limited in their capacity to help anybody So you have to
It's
help yourself.
much less risk for them. It's an investment. They are investing in hoping that your book is going to do well. As you know, my mother was a literary agent for some odd years. And yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, her least favorite thing that people would say was, there's no book in the world like mine. And she would say, then no one's going to buy it because people buy in certain
Right.
categories and all of that. We both have agents that we love and refer for our clients, but now they're looking for, yeah, how many social media followers do you have? How many times a year do you speak? How many books could you sell? How much could you do yourself? Well, how big of a list do you have? They're not looking for something so unique and so different and so fabulous.
So the whole key to writing a book that gets read from cover to cover and that gets the reader so excited that they are looking for how on earth could I work with this person, or how can I bring this person into my company, or oh my God, we got to get this person on our stages. So to get a book like that takes time, takes some effort. But the trick is, how do you pull pieces of that book while you're writing it and pop that onto social media, or pop that into a newsletter, or pop that onto a podcast interview, and put ideas out there, put those content chunks out there, and begin to develop an audience so that by the time the book comes out, it takes time to write it and then publish it. By the time the book comes out, you've already got those ready-made, the audience members, purchasers of your book,
You
raving
have a
fans.
you have a platform.
You have a
You've built yourself a platform.
platform.
Like I said, I've never thought of it in those terms, but it's how can you use the fact that you're writing a book to get you business while you are writing it? And that's it. You can not only can you use the fact that the title explains exactly what your business does, the subtitle explains exactly why they should do business with you, but also you can see what kind of feedback you get on them and all your various different platforms and refine them as you go. That's really clever. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so brilliant. Nice, nice. And I find that just the fact that you say, I'm writing a book, does make you an expert. I mean, nowadays it's a little easier for most people to say they're writing a book. Most people think, oh, everybody's writing a book right now. It actually isn't that way. 0.001% of the population ever write and publish a book. It's
Right.
still fairly small around the world. So the fact that you can say, I'm writing a book, and you don't have to say 20 minutes of, well, what we do at our company is blah, blah, blah. You can just say, I'm writing a book on exactly what we do.
That's a great lesson, because one of the things that I used to approach writing a book, I would say, don't worry about the title, because we're going to find the title when we have a
I
complete
used,
manuscript.
I used to say that too.
Right?
I
We're going to
did.
find it. It's going to reveal itself.
I
And
did.
I have
Yeah.
clients, at the very beginning of their engagement with me, they're like, no, what's the title? I'm like, here's the working title. No, like, here's roughly what I think the working title is. And I think the point you're making is an excellent point. We need a little more than a working title. We need something that is going to drive those conversations, is going to, create that true sense of what that writer is about, what that business owner is about, what the outcome is that they produce for others.
If you can say what the benefit of your company is in a phrase and then a subtitle, you don't have to brag. You don't have to do any of that. You literally only have to say, I'm writing a book called title, subtitle. And then people will say, oh, wow, that second thing you said about operations, you guys do that? Oh, yeah, yeah, we do. We definitely do that at our company. Oh, yeah, we're having some problems we can't seem to compete in our marketplace. The third part of your subtitle said that you're an expert in that. Yeah, oh, yeah. And there's no bragging. And the other thing is that people forget how many of the clients that you have are coming to you because other people are selling you. The fact that a book enables them, other people who love you can explain what you do to them. So I started switching it up and making people do the title first. There's a real power in also, what do you stand for? It stakes your claim. What are your values? What are the values of your company? And what do you stand for? Yeah, but I love that idea that you are then taking content and using it to build the platform. It's like
Yeah.
building a plane while you're flying it, but you're building the platform of people who know you. And correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't that allow you to test out which pieces get good responses and which pieces are maybe more confusing to people and need some refinement? You would get
Absolutely.
instant feedback from social media, or if you said it on a podcast or whatever, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Like social media. So we'll talk about a lot of people who are running businesses. They're not on social media. Maybe they have a slight presence on LinkedIn, but they're not posting on Instagram. They're not doing a TikTok video. They're not using those tools, right? Those tools are typically used by people who are in online marketing, who are marketing their business online and doing courses and whatnot. They are heavy users of social media. But being on a podcast and using a story with a very clear outcome or lesson that you have thought through in your book, or your ghostwriter in combination with you has thought through on your book, suddenly you have those sound bites and those key lessons that are everything. First of all, it makes it easier for the podcast host to latch onto something, to build a conversation on. You're not rambling. You've got the key story, key point based on, the question, how to use that material. So you're a better podcast guest. And then suddenly you've got people who can understand you. They're hooked on the story because story is key to getting outcome for
Everything.
people. Story is everything.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Inspiring Victory Show. I am Sarah Victory, and I am so glad you are a part of our tribe. It means so much to me and to the whole team who brings you this amazing content. If you are enjoying this, do us a big favor. Like, subscribe, watch it all the way through to the end. Tell somebody about it. They'll thank you later, I promise. And help us out with growing the channel because it's free, but it's not free. We really need your participation in order to be able to get this kind of content out to people that desperately need it, especially now. Thank you again, and double your business, double your impact, and change the world. Now back to the show.
The people who
For thousands of years, the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, we remember metaphor and we remember stories, and people tend to forget that can be the most powerful thing. And there are formulas, and I see you doing them in your books, and we certainly use it with people who are speaking on stages or writing books or whatever. But that, I had a client who wanted something. We did ABC to help them get there, and the amazing result was X percentage, X number, growth, what something. That formula in every other chapter in a book or in every other major point in your 7 secrets in your speech, or when you're on a podcast, that can get you a lot of business. But you fall into somebody asks you a question and you answer with a story, but you don't have a beginning, middle, and end to it. And what's great about you guys is you can ghostwrite, you can help them put all the pieces together, you can help them figure out the title, you can get them all the way through until publishing the thing and promoting it, but using it again as that business growth engine. So it's just really interesting to me. That's how you frame all of this stuff.
Yeah, I'll have people come to me with a dissertation. And I do, and they're convinced that their dissertation is good to go. They're thinking like, let's just,
I'm done.
format this, let's just get this going, and this is going to be, driving my career forward. And I'll take, I'll spend 15 minutes in a dissertation and I'll be, evaluating it, going, this is just not going to do what you want it to do. But the resistance is, of course, I've already done this a huge amount of
all
work.
of this work. Yeah.
I've done all of this work, does not translate without story, without breaking it apart and making it digestible for a very specific audience member. Because, who's reading your dissertation? It's your academic advisory committee, and it may be somebody who's tripped over it in a library.
Right, which is awesome for that environment. I get the same thing with titles, oh, I've got this great title, nice. Oh, that's fantastic for the self-help market, maybe for the women's market, crystals, wonderful, enjoy, right? And then they go, oh, no, I just literally had this woman say to me, no, corporations, they need to know the power of crystals. And I said, I'm sure they do, but they don't want to know. They don't get up, if they don't get up in the morning and go, you know what, I want some crystals. Really pushing a rock uphill or a crystal uphill like Sisyphus for the rest of your life. So people say, is this a good title? Isn't this a good title? All my friends would say it's a good title. And I say, no, all your friends like you. And that is a good title for what? Or that story or that dissertation is good over here in your academic setting, but it has to be chunked into things that will grab people and give people some sort of emotion attached to in order to be able to have it work. I love how you're able to take all these crazy things that are going on with people, whether they're very academic, the Harvard training must help you on that, or whether they're, it's a lot of just interesting experiences and stories, and boil that into something that is going to be that business growth engine for the client or whatever the goal is for them.